Welcome back again to another episode of Admin Access. I think this is episode four, three or four, one of those. And today we're bringing to you Mr. Andrew Higginbotham, who works for Dell. I think that's been kind of your career trajectory over the past few years. But Mr. Higginbotham, if you would you introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having me. You want the whole career intro, or I
Let's
can go
start
long form?
let's start with a little bit about who you are, and then we'll reverse
Okay.
the time clock and we'll look at those things here in just a minute.
Yeah, sure. So Andrew Higginbotham. I live in Austin, Texas. I am a TSTC graduate. I actually had to go back on LinkedIn to see the actual years I attended. It was TSTC Waco from 2004 to 2006. Uh, Dual majored in computer networking with a Microsoft specialization and then network security. Did a handful of roles after graduation, moved back to Houston and wound up in Austin working for Dell in 2008, wearing a lot of different hats, doing a lot of different things across the last 18 years. And then now I've done work occasionally through TSTC as well. And this is, great to be invited.
Excellent. Well, glad to have you. Absolutely. Um, so most of the time with these things, what I really try to do is kind of answer a lot of the questions that our students have before they know they have them, or they've been having them and they haven't asked anybody about them yet. And one of the common things that I see or I hear a lot in whispers, sometimes I get them directly, but it's, where do you even start? And I think that the answer to that question is a little different for everybody. But what I like to ask here is, how did you get your start before all the glitz and glamour? Before you got the cool business cards that say Dell on them with your fancy title, where did you get your start, kind of in the world of tech?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I was lucky that my father, someone commented on the guitars in my background. My dad's only job was playing guitar in a band until he was about 30. But then he needed to get a real job. Highly encouraged by my grandpa at the time, just get a real job, kid. You got a family now. And he got into tech in Houston. So he did at the time telco and data cabling in the medical center in Houston. So he did that for a number of years, and then as I was growing up, trying to find what I wanted to do, he saw that I kind of took interest in the things he did. He'd bring cables and punch down panels home from work, and you'd show me how they worked, and I would come to work with him a little bit. So there, in high school, my high school, which was in Deer Park, Texas, suburb of Houston, they had a partnership with a local community college to have the Cisco CCNA Academy, to where some high school kids could take it if they want. So once he saw that, he's like, "You need to be in that. You'll like that." And I did. I liked it so much. I took it my junior year, did well. I took it again my senior year just because I knew I wanted to do that. Right. I just wanted to absorb as much as I could. And then from there, just I found my way to TSTC because it just so happened that the instructor that they chose to teach that program was also teaching electrical trades for the high school, and he had sent a lot of kids to TSTC from that. And I guess there's parallels there, right? I mean, if you know electrical trades, if you know cabling, I mean, you are close. You're in the same stratosphere as tech, right? Especially when you're talking layer one, two, and three, so to speak, right? So I did that. Found my way into TSTC. I worked a couple jobs here and there that are close to tech. I not not talking bad of other types of part-time jobs, but like I wanted to like try to find a gig early on that like got me closer to tech, even if it was less money. So I worked briefly in a data center, just sort of as a hired hand when I was in high school, made that connection through that same teacher. And then when I found my way into TSTC, I worked for, at the time, I don't even know if this still exists, but it was called Student Online Services, just help desk,
Oh
for
yeah.
different things. I think we fixed computers for kids on campus, and then um, also manage their internet access if they were living in the on-site housing. So I could keep going, but like those are sort of my first steps in the IT field, just doing a bunch of little different stuff that got me different types of exposure.
Excellent. So before your dad kind of introduced you to some of the things that that he was dealing with on a day to day, did you have any interest in tech, or was that really the exposure that you got?
I was never like super into tech, I mean, I played video games back then. Back then, it was Halo or Counter Strike LAN parties and stuff. I did have a little bit of an interest of like, okay, how did this work under the hood? How did networking work? How did computers work? That was probably the big selling point, honestly, because at the time, and I don't know if it's different now, at the time in high school, you weren't really taught things like networking or how what an IP address is, like how all these things around you worked. Maybe once in a science class you'd hear a little bit about how like analog television worked or like how that kind of stuff. But that was my first exposure to like here's how computers actually work under the hood, and that fascinated me. So that's the science behind it is honestly probably what got me more into it than like being a pure computer hobbyist.
Yeah, I gotta say, I very much agree. So, I mean, my start was very much in the high school timeline as well, and the person that was kind of leading me through all the different technologies, I found myself really enjoying that. Once you kind of you take the facade off of it, there is no magic back there. It's all bits, it's all electrical pulses, it's all light pulses, it's all something tangible. And even when you have that one problem that you've been, clicking on, dealing with, thinking about for the past 3 days or whatever, there is something that is causing the issue. So yeah, I feel myself very much kind of in the sciencey realm of it all as well. That is very much why I got
Yeah.
interested into it. Um, so
I try to
that's
do this. Sorry, but like, I do something similar today. I was joking about this with my wife that when my dad would bring home like a punch down panel or a piece of fiber optic cable for me to look at, like I did something similar with my 9-year-old son. I brought home an old non-functional Chromebook, and I took the battery out so he couldn't blow himself up or hurt himself. But I just let him like open it up and poke around, and he thought he spent 30 minutes just looking around inside there, unscrewing stuff. So that's that's the best way to approach it, I think, for kids is come from like a pure curiosity standpoint.
yeah, yep, definitely agree. So you said you had got started how long after high school did you wait to end up at TSTC?
Immediate. I mean, I graduated high
Okay.
school in 2004, and like, as I said, my instructor in high school who taught again the Cisco Networking Academy, he was also electrical instructor. He had high praise for TSTC. So I started that fall, I believe it was. So it was just took summer off, started in fall. Um, and jumped right in at the to the CNS and network security uh, curriculums.
Excellent. So I think one of the points that I kind of want to make clear to those that are listening now or that will listen later is that I think there's a lot of fear when taking on one of the challenges, like getting into networking or getting into system administration, because you've got no background in it. And I mean, I think Andrew kind of that was kind of your path where there was really no prior knowledge other than, oh, now there's stuff in my view, now I can poke at it and learn from it and do stuff with it. I think no matter how old you are or where you are in your career, whether that's at the beginning, the middle, or the end, I think it's it's something that is easily doable if you've got an open mind about it, if you've got some curiosity about it. So uh,
Oh,
there's
yeah, yeah, I agree completely. One thing too, I've discussed this with some coworkers too, that it was funny. We found that we all went to tech and we all took similar different electives in high school too. It's like an athlete cross training, doing different sports. Like
right.
I knew that teacher because I took electrical trades. I also took at the time like an architecture class. I took shop and like those kind of things. You sort of start as you take things that you like, you sort of start building a path towards like, okay, which career do I want? So to your question earlier, had I not gone into tech, well, I mean, I'm from East Houston, Deer Park area. I might have been an electrician in the refineries or something like that, right?
Right.
Or possibly the Air Force because my uncle did technical stuff in the Air Force. But just sort of gravitated towards that direction and just found I kept enjoying it.
Yeah, I compare us a lot of times to mechanics. I mean, we have a lot of tools that we can use to plug up to a machine and kind of troubleshoot stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you're mechanically inclined, if you like to build stuff with your hands, if you like getting kind of knee deep into the grit of whatever command line interface you have to drop down to get to the actual meat of whatever is actually running, yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that you can look into.
Mhm.
So after you graduate, well, let me ask you about the schooling aspect of it. Did you enjoy it at all?
Sorry, say that again. I coughed over you.
Oh no, no, the schooling part of it before we get into
Oh
kind of how
yeah,
the career took off for you. The schooling part of it, did you enjoy the schooling part of it? Was it or was it more of a this is just the next step. I have to go through this to get to the next step.
I enjoyed the schooling part. I mean, the I liked how all the instructors seemed to have a background in the industry to some degree. A lot of classes. It wouldn't just be the pure academic. Let's talk about what's in the book or what's in the curriculum. It would be, There was one guy there. I can't remember his name. I don't even know if he's still there. But like he had worked at Dell himself at one time, and he was telling stories from how they set up a server room and this and that. And I really enjoyed that element of it. So no, I liked my time there. I liked that I had the opportunity to do, some actual work while I was there, do some, tech work. And yeah, it was very cool. I don't even know if it's still there, but I'm also you see behind me, I'm a golfer. So when I wasn't working or in class, I was playing that little 4-hole course that they had up at the in the Waco campus. But no, I really enjoyed my 2-ish years there.
Excellent. So after you graduated, I remember us talking a little bit before we got started, but you ended up in consulting, is that right? Or what?
I bounced a little bit around. So my first real job, I guess, almost a month or two out of college, was working at a local school district in the Houston area. It was Barbers Hill ISD. It was something just to, at the time, just get some experience under my belt. Right, money was almost non-existent. Right, but I was doing help desk across the school district. Anything from shaking a printer cartridge to helping someone figure out why this looks weird in Microsoft Word. um, I did that for 6 months or so, and then I wanted to do something more in depth. So I worked for a consulting company in Houston, consulting slash IT outsourcing, right? So a lot of their customers were spread all over the Houston area. So every day I was at somewhere different, and it would be a combination of doing whatever punch list things that came up for me since the last week I was there, to regular maintenance. And this is, you're talking 2006, 2007 time frame. So like making sure Veritas backup had run, making sure if they were running like Exchange '03 or whatever, that their database was back. Yeah, whatever, like maintenance. And then it was just sort of walking around, see if anyone need help with different things. And I enjoyed that. Uh, I chose to do something different and ultimately go to Dell in 2008, partially because I'd been in Houston my whole life and then Waco, but wanted to see something that, I enjoy Austin a lot. See something else, do something different. But honestly, funny enough, at the time, I had done consulting for a couple years here. I kind of wanted to be a consultant. I reached out to someone at Dell at a job fair, and they said like, "Hey, look, we're a big company. We'll train you in anything you want to do. We'll pay for any industry certifications you want to go take, right? And so, and we'll, do this job." At the time, they were hiring for frontline tech support, right? So my plan was just to go get as many certs as I could, get as much experience under my belt, and then just go right back to being a consultant, because I knew those things could, those certs and whatnot were good on a resume. And I just happened to stay there for 18 years because there was always some opportunities.
Well, I want to pick your brain on what happened during that 18 years, but before we get there, one of the questions that I get a lot, and I think all the instructors kind of get this question a lot, is how do you get that first job? Now, granted, you'd mentioned it was 2007, 2008 time frame, so things likely have changed a whole heck of a lot since then. But what were the things that that you think helped you the most when you applied for the job at the school district?
At the school district, that one, and by the way, this was one of the more awkward interviews I have ever done at the school district because I'm okay up front. This was 2007. The job was to I was making $26,000 a year. Okay, not a senior. This is literally you're right out of school. Don't expect much. But I was like, I just want the experience, right? I walk in and it's a boardroom table with 12 people at it interviewing me, like the entire school district IT department. And in my head, I'm like, y'all realize this is not this is like I'm not your new director of IT. You're going to throw six figures at this is not a risky hire. Why? But no, but I will say that to answer the question, what really helped me was I was comfortable in that situation. I didn't, panic, and ultimately it was because I had already done a lot of different customer facing stuff. Like I sort of had a customer face that I could put on because like I didn't mention it before, but before any of the schooling stuff, I worked for my uncle's industrial tool business for a couple years during the summers when I was too young to really be working, but I would sweep the shop floors, like, but I would help customers. I had done that job working in the data center, and and I had done, worked at TSTC, right, for my roughly my full 2 years there in a help desk customer facing role, right? So they saw that and they liked the fact that I had done a lot of stuff already, right?
Mhm.
And even if those things weren't glamorous or they weren't super sexy sounding or cool, they were things that I had done, right? And I would say, again, not to jump ahead, but like I've told you before, I've interviewed a lot of people in my time at Dell. I'm one of the first people they like to do like the tech interview or just the general interview. And I often look for those little other things, right? Like not the main entree, the side dish things that the person has done.
Right.
And that could be volunteering your time for your church doing tech computer work, right? Or that could be being a member of some club at school. It could be a sports team, it could be the chess club, doesn't matter. But it's something that shows that like this person has like interfaced with people before, they know how to collaborate. And also they're not just getting along through life doing the bare minimum, right? They're willing to go do something. So for that first gig, it was the fact that I had done some different stuff, one of which working for the college. Um, but then they also, at the time, they appreciated that I showed them the TSTC resume. I think they actually said they knew something about TSTC, so that's might have
Hey,
been
all
why my
right.
resume made it. But I think I had done a Microsoft specialization. They were a Microsoft shop. They also had Novell to a certain degree too, and I had done a little bit of that.
Oh, it was on its
So
way out at in those years.
Yeah, I mean, when I took the CCNA exam back in '04, whenever the heck it was, and SPX was on it, and the very next version it
Oh,
was gone.
yeah.
So it's like, all right, I had to learn something that I've never again used in my life.
And that's one,
Uh,
so for those of y'all listening, go look up SPX. It's quite interesting. So, but so you would kind of say, I mean, the personable skills, the people skills that you've kind of gathered over the different jobs that you've had over time, have really kind of helped you out with being able to sit down. I mean, in a boardroom full of 12 other people, I think being able to keep a cool head and have a
yeah,
conversation with them, whether or not you knew the answers to the questions, I think by and large that looms large in, whether you're interviewing one on one with somebody, three on one with somebody, or you find yourself in a sticky situation with 12 other people. Um, Being able to have that conversation, I think, is one of the best things that you could do, even if you don't know the answers to all of the questions that they're asking. So, Andrew, to your point, I think that's what you get when you volunteer your time or you spend time in a club or you're not just doing the work that is assigned to you in school. You're expanding your horizons a little bit at the very least. I know it's harder in an online situation. It's a little easier when you're on campus to be able to kind of, poke at your classmates and say, "Hey, I don't understand this. Can you help me out with this? Or can we put together a group where we talk about PC hardware or the latest exploits or whatever it is in tech that really kind of it kind of gets you going. A group that talks about that all the time is going to make you better, and it's going to help you." develop those social skills that you're going to need when you sit down with somebody, or when you end up working with a problem, working with your coworker, or whether you're talking up or down the chain of command. That kind of thing is going to help you a whole lot, and it's really going to help you in the interview process too. So,
And I think people undercount a lot, or they don't give themselves enough credit because, like, maybe someone helped out, coaching kids sports or something like that,
right.
right? I know my daughter does swim. They have a lot of the high school swim team kids who help coach. It's like, you coached youth, all right. Like, people, there's all sorts of stuff people do that maybe they don't think to put on a resume that they probably should. Any
Yeah,
kind of Boy Scout volunteering or Girl Scout, whatever. There's a million different things you can do that people look for. Real quick, funny story. A guy I used to work with. He's a funny guy, but he interviewed a lot of people. He's like, there's this one guy I interviewed that I really like because he listed one of the things he used to do is he ran like a Dungeons and Dragons club, right? And like I mean, it's far on the geek spectrum, right? Like it's a geek thing, but he's like this guy knows how to collaborate with others, coordinate with others, probably has a good imagination if he's a D&D guy. So there's all sorts of stuff that people undercount that they do or have done that you should absolutely put on a resume if it's if it ticks those boxes of showing collaboration and networking.
absolutely. And back to the coaching kids sports, I think if you are ever in a situation that you have to wrangle the parents of kids, that's that's it.
Don't get me
That's
started.
the skill.
See my show. I coach my son's baseball. I'm retired from that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I imagine there's it's greener pastures once you've retired.
Yeah.
Well, good. So, um, now that we've got that out of the way, a little bit of good advice. I want to hear a little bit about your story at Dell. So, when you started there, what was the position you got hired first at Dell for?
Another memorable interview. I got hired. I took a pay cut. So I was doing consulting in Houston at the time. Again, I took a pay cut, again, knowing I wanted to just come here and get a bunch of certs, right? But the first job was frontline enterprise, or now called ISG, tech support. It was the high complexity, low volume team in Dell. So basically, if you have a server, piece of networking, or storage equipment, you buy a pro support contract, which is, it's not the base warranty, it's like the upsell. You get better stuff. You get to talk to more skilled technicians. You get all sorts of better stuff, right? I was on the team that was sort of like anything and everything could land on your phone and you could get the call. So it could be an Exchange server case, SQL server, could be Linux, could be systems management, could be core hardware. So I took that job, and I remember at the time the guy interviewing me. He's like, "Hey, look, we'll teach you a lot of stuff. We'll pay for all these certs. We'll pay for your education. But there's people who've come here and declined this job because in this interview room there was a physical phone on the table, because he's like, because your job is to be tied to that phone for your entire shift. And there's some people who absolutely hate it, can't do it. But if you're willing to do that, you can go, go to another job in 12 months or whatever, right? So I liked how he approached it. He was like he was a Marine, right? He just had that very kind of, you'll run through a brick wall for the guy, because I still worked with him. But so that wasn't one I had to think about, because I was used to being like consultant. I kind of moved around all day. I had a lot more freedom there, but like being tied to a phone, um, was tough. But the thing that sold me, he goes like, but here's the deal: your day tied to that phone, and every day you're living, the other person on the end of that phone, you're living their worst day in their entire year. Like, you're talking to some IT admin who's having their worst day of their whole year because their server's down and they don't know what to do. And you're going to help them with it. And, we'll bring in other people to the call, but at the end of it, you're going to know what fixed that. So in a year of doing this job, you're going to have more experience than your typical punch the clock, do whatever IT admin is going to have. So that was the case. It was, by all accounts, a crummy gig getting stuck to the phone, but the opportunity, if you're willing to suck it up, you would learn a lot, and I did. So that one, probably it is the best decision I ever made in my life, to suck it up and lose the free, take less money, lose the freedom of being a consultant, to go be a frontline tech support person. But it worked out great.
I think this kind of mirrors my experience both personally and with a lot of the more successful admins that I see. It's that early in your career, somehow you ended up having to wear eight hats. You had to know how to do Linux administration, you had to know how to do Windows administration. There was always a Mac somewhere. The printer was screaming at you all the
The,
time.
the exec always had a Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Of course. The higher up you go, the more likely you are to have a Mac. And right, but I think the most important thing about that was that you didn't kind of get stuck into a rut. Like you only know the one thing, you know, Linux really, really, really good. It's that you're forced to have to answer questions that you don't really know the answer to going into it sometimes. But as you mentioned, by the end of it all, you understood what went wrong, and that goes back to my earlier comment about it's not magic. It really isn't, unless you're talking about that bluish gray smoke that comes out of the back of a computer when something electrically goes wrong. That is magic dust. You have to put that
Mm-hmm.
back in for it to work anymore, but it's very difficult to do so. So we just replace it.
Mm-hmm.
But
You call Dell, we'll give you a new one.
exactly right, same day, 24 hours, something like that, depending on your tier, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
um but yeah, so having that kind of well-rounded experience, being able or being willing to kind of get out of your comfort zone and answer questions, I think is really, really, really what makes some of the best admins, because you never know what kind of thing you're going to learn in the Windows world that's going to apply in a not so direct way, but it's going to apply in the Linux world as well, especially when you try to bring them together. You know the quirks here, you know the quirks there. It helps you kind of think through what the solution to the problem might actually be. So
Yeah, I mean, I would even say, even to this day, if you put me on the phone and you put some technology that I have no idea how it works, Azure Local, Nutanix, whatever, like I don't know how that stuff works today. I could still probably get pretty far along of like, okay, well, when did the issue start? What was the last thing that happened? Is there logs collected? How many like there's all sorts of questions you can ask to make the picture a little clearer, right? Until you get to the point of like, okay, let's go find the true expert. Let's go engage the vendor. Or let's go wait till so and so's back from lunch. So that's another thing is don't be sort of defeatist and like throw your hands in the air and give up. It's just like there's always questions you can ask. You just if you don't know the tech, just be Columbo or be whatever, be
right.
that's a deep cut for some people who may not know who Columbo is, but be the detective who's just asking, the questions, right?
Absolutely, because I mean, one of the things that I think people overlook a lot of times is the fundamentals. I think that's kind of what you're getting at with you may not know Azure, but you know the questions to ask to kind of get yourself at least on the trajectory to the solution, and it all comes back to the fundamentals, like understanding how the basic stuff really works. And
Hmm.
one of the questions that I get a lot from students as well is kind of how do you manage not knowing? Because I think students, especially early on, students, they kind of have this perception that you're going to know everything eventually, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. So, Andrew, to you, how do you manage kind of not knowing? So if someone were to come to you with an Azure question, right, out of your wheelhouse, but you still kind of know the basics, how would you kind of handle um, learning what you would need to learn to kind of become an expert in something?
Okay. Yes. I mean, so if someone asks me immediate question and they need a 5-minute answer, I would do what I mentioned before. Like, okay, what's the timeline of events? What's the scope of the problem? What's going on, right? To answer the question of like, how would I become an expert at something? I think it's important to understand what your preferred modality is for education. There's some people who will pull up a tech manual or a spec or whatever and just read it, and that's how they learn. Not me. Some people need to touch it, need to feel it. That's closer to me. Some people need to see like real world examples of how something works. So sometimes that's I'll give you a great example. A lot of the tech I've learned over the years, I've actually found the most valuable way of learning is like certain conferences, if it's like Microsoft Ignite or LinuxCon, whatever. I'll watch like a session from someone who's been in the field for a while, and they'll kind of explain something. So like that's my preferred method of like seeing someone who's been there explain a practical use case for it, and that's the most important thing. Like that even in grade school I struggled if a teacher tried to teach me math but they never told me how this math might be used in the real world. I couldn't connect the dots, right? So whatever the technology, like Azure Local, so I would say, well, why would a customer buy Azure Local? Like, what's the use case? What are they trying to do? What problem are they trying to solve? Okay, all right, well, why is it similar to just a regular Hyper-V cluster? Like, what's the difference? Like, try to relate it to something I do already have a good grasp of. So bigger point there is figure out what your preferred modality is for learning something new, right? Because everybody's going to be a little different.
Definitely. And I think we can accommodate most of those. And I think one of the things that I encourage you to do while you're going through school, Andrew, I'd like your input on this one as well. Is to essentially run more than you need to in school, right? So, like in a virtualization course where we have you install a couple of Debian machines and migrate them from one to another, go further. What would it look like if you added a third node so that you could migrate from one to two to three? What would happen if you started looking into high availability? What would happen if you? What would happen if you? What would happen if you?
Hmm.
And
Break it. Yeah,
yes,
I would do that a lot when I was in the more technical roles. I would absolutely try to break it, see what happens. Uh, Especially like coming if you're in a position like in tech support, you only see things after they've broke, right? Try to take a normal environment, break it, see what happens. Like, okay, well, which log is going to start screaming at me if I just turn this off, right? Or where would I go if this isn't, working properly? There's a certain common across all technology. There's a certain troubleshooting methodology that everyone sort of lands on. Some people say like OSI models start from layer one. I mean, everyone's got their preferences, right? But like you just sort of figure out your troubleshooting methodology by just breaking it, you know.
I think so. I mean, I very much agree because when you see what happens and see what happens, and one of those things that happens is you break it, and you have to figure out. I mean, to your point before, don't throw your hands up, right? Like the point of all of that, especially of breaking it, is now it's time for the real work to begin. Right now, you've got to start trying to unravel this crazy web that you have created, and see if you can get it back to a working position. And if not, that's what we're here for, right? I'm very open to that kind of thing. I've never seen it before. But ask me the question anyway. I can help you at the very least. I can help you Google and see if we
Yeah,
can't come to.
yeah. One example again, guitars behind me. Some folks may know this already. So the guitar player for Boston, famous band, rock band, right? He went to MIT. He was like an audio tech nerd, right? And he
Whoa,
just started playing around in his house with all sorts of modulation and sound effects, and a lot of their sound came from like devices he actually electrical engineered himself, right? So
whoa.
that was just some dude who was curious and was a bit of a geek, and he kind of found something cool, right? It's the same thing. Just go play around in your lab, figure out something new. You'll be shocked to realize that eventually it'll come back to help you. The things you put in. It's just like an athlete. The work you put in will eventually pay pay its dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask the question, what if, and follow up on that. And I think you're going to end up landing in a pretty good spot. So we've heard a little bit about the beginning of your career with Dell. So what is the later middle and the later part of that career look like for you today?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump through a bit of it, right? So I worked in some form or fashion in a tech support L1, L2, or L3 role for a number of years. Around 2015-ish, we got very product specific. I was our subject matter expert on Microsoft Exchange at the time, as well as Active Directory. There was a certification called Microsoft Certified Master that I got for Exchange. Then I became a Microsoft MVP for a few years because I blogged, I wrote, I answered questions on that. So I
I
got
want to
very,
stop
very
you right there
technically deep.
just for a sec because you and people like you, the Microsoft MVPs, have had helped me for a good like 3 year track of my life, as I was dealing with Windows servers every single day. And a lot of those blogs are what I spent a lot of time reading, as you were mentioning, just kind of a little extracurricular, right? I didn't have to read those blogs, but I think reading stuff like that really helped me understand the bigger picture when it came to Active Directory Exchange. I mean, the whole Windows ecosphere that you get into before Azure really took hold and everything. But yeah,
Yeah,
so just for
you
me,
can't.
you thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, you can't understate the importance of having someone's opinion on a technology that doesn't work for that company.
Right.
Like you go get a Red Hat, you go to Microsoft, it doesn't matter the company, you read their articles, you watch their videos, you're gonna get the corporate speak. They're never gonna trash they're never gonna tell you how it really works. Like, yeah, this thing's a little buggy as hell, don't worry. But you talk to someone out there who's doing a blog post, who's doing an independent thought, you're going to get the good, bad, and the ugly, and that's what
Yeah,
you really care for. You don't want to you want to bypass the legalese, the corporate speak, and get to someone who's going to give you closer to the truth.
definitely.
Yeah. So I got pretty technical for a point in my career there. 2018, I could have gone into consulting again for Dell and been on the road. I had my first child then, didn't want to be on the road. So I decided, like, okay, what do I want in the future? What do I like to do? And it's like, I like to be a part of like the decision making of the cool and the new. I know what skills I have technically. It's not just around Exchange. It's like I know I can learn things very technically. I know I can pick them up quickly. I have the customer experience piece. I was a team lead at the time as well. So I was in my head like, okay, what are the skills I have? What should I do? But then I realized the skills I don't have. I didn't know anything about how the sausage was made, like how products actually get built. So technical program management as well as product management, I didn't know. That was a blind spot for me. And I kind of thought maybe one day I'd be like a office of the CTO, technologist, strategist type person. But to get there, I needed to know more about products. So what I did was I took a complete detour on my career path, and actually almost felt like a rookie again because I went and I did within Dell Services. I worked technical program manager for a lot of our client products. So that's Latitude, that's Precision, Chromebook, Education, and then some of the software. So my role was to sit in the middle of what we call those core teams. Those teams where they're actually building the next version of a Latitude or whatever the widget is, doesn't matter. They're building the new thing. There's a person from services whose job is to make sure that we can repair it, we can support it, we have the parts ready, we can do all these things that you need to do to support it. That was me. So I did that from roughly 2018 to 2022, which meant I got to do that right in the midst of COVID,
Excellent. Oh yeah.
which totally threw our SLAs and our parts availability out the window, right? But that was probably just like I said, taking the first job at Dell, like that was the most important decision I had made because one, it was me doing something like I had all this credibility, all this comfort of like being the subject matter expert in Exchange and AD. I could have done all sorts of jobs. Now I'm coming into an area where it's like I'm the rookie, so to speak. Took a lateral position. I didn't get any more money to do it. I just moved over. Um, and I learned so many new skills. And to fast forward a bit, like I could have said, oh, I could make more money here. Well, I've almost doubled my pay since I made that move in 2018 by building on those new skills, right? So there's different ways to look at it. Is like I have a certain comfort level in this thing that I do today, but I took a risk to do something new that overall made me a more complete, employee, so to speak. Because now I knew technology and I had the customer skills, but now I knew program management, product management. So I did that for up until 2022 before making the other change. So that was probably the biggest pivot in the middle nearish part of my career.
Excellent. So you had mentioned COVID. I almost forgot about that. But in 2018 we actually heard some of the first rumblings of what we know today as LLMs. I think in 2022 we really got the first peek at what the kind of capabilities that we might be looking at in the future. 2023 people start writing about it all over the place, talking about how it's going to change everything, change the world. And over the past few years, I think we've seen some of this. We've seen some benefits. We've seen a lot of pitfalls. Where do you find yourself landing as far as all of this AI stuff goes? Because I know this is another question that'll kind of we'll feed this through the next little bit of the conversation. But this is a question that I know a lot of students have
Yeah,
questions about.
Yeah, it's sort of, I feel like AI, big picture, it's something that the concepts have been around amongst the technical community for a while. And then it seems like sort of the marketing and the executives and Wall Street has sort of co-opted it and taken over a lot. Like even you could say that, what we're calling AI today is really just a LLM, right?
Mhm.
And then artificial general intelligence is what AI was meant to be. It's like all these terms get thrown around and they get reused. Everything sort of changed after Chat GPT launched, and the general public became aware of it, and the stock market became aware of it. But
Did it.
yeah, they did it. So yeah,
Ram still
the
hurts.
yeah, I wish I'd never sold a single Dell share of my stock. I'll say that. And we all have our little interesting AI stories. But the no, what I mean to say there is that people have been talking about like some machine learning or various types of automation for a while, and like Dell, we have a long track record of looking at those things because we're a scale company, we're a scale operation. Like if you could come in and just sprinkle a little bit of automation across all the dispatches we do across the globe on any given year, there's all sorts of savings. So we've been marching down that path for quite a long time now. But I mean, AI as it's taken over everything recently, like it's definitely impressive in some ways. I think what I look at it as, it's a tool, it's a force multiplier. It is not taking away the need to understand what's going on under the hood. I mean, yes, you can make pictures and you can make videos, you can, search is easier to use, right? But like a buddy of mine who was a managing director of a capital management company, he's a finance dude. He was using it, but he's like, I still have to know the under the hood math to double check it. I still have to know, how some of the concepts work. So just like for me, I have to know if I'm using it in a work setting. I still have to fact check it, right? And I think that's always going to be there. My worry about like in the academic world is that kids aren't using AI to just go easy street, get through a bunch of stuff, because that'll come to bite you. I mean, and you're only hurting yourself by doing that. You need to understand what's happening. Uh, Under the hood. Maybe not to the same degree. Sort of like how like us in tech, this is an example I used, and I'm gonna, you might remember this better than me. Long time ago, we all were, if you were making your own, building your own PC, you actually had to do like what, map the IRQ stuff, and
Yeah.
you had to know stuff at a very fine grained detail that once plug and play came along, like you didn't have to know that, right? There's no need to know that anymore, right? AI might be like that. There are some things, maybe you don't need to memorize everything before. You just have to have a concept of what's happening. That's where I think AI is probably going. It doesn't replace foundational knowledge. It's just a force multiplier for people who know how to use it effectively.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been my experience as well. I mean, you still have to be able to, whatever it tells you, you still have to be able to synthesize that and translate it into actual action. And yeah, so at least as far as I can see, it doesn't seem like it's going to truly replace the person. So we've still got a little bit of runway.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly wouldn't replace the person who's willing to wear all the different hats, right?
Right.
I'll be a little more blunt. Like if your job is, I'll use an analogy. If your job is just turning a crank all day, like all you do is a very repetitive task, then you should see that train coming down the tracks and step off. I mean, you should. Okay, if all I'm doing is the same repetitive thing over and over and over again, then that probably needs to be automated,
Yeah.
right? You don't. To give maybe a closer analogy for an IT admin, if all you're ever doing is going and looking at a remoting into a machine and making sure the jobs run, that's all your job is, then your job shouldn't exist, because someone should have automated that
Yeah.
and scripted it. So as long as you're there building the multi-dimensional kind of skill sets, and you're someone who has the interpersonal skills, you're someone that people like working with, and people see you not as a I know skill ABC, they see you as someone who has good technical skills, good hard worker, good people skills, then you'll just shift to whatever the next problem that business needs to solve, right?
Right. So AI as a tool, I think is a good way to look at it. But I think the bigger point there is that the things that we kind of covered, right? I mean, you just listed them right there. Those are really the things that early on in your career you really need to focus on. Because I mean, when you're just being seen as a resume, I mean, even at that point, you still look a whole lot better than a lot of the resumes that are coming along alongside yours. So,
Yeah, you know, again, there's we can have philosophical discussions, but like at the moment, AI is what sells, right? So it is certainly not going to hurt you to spend time working around, do something related, take a class, take a course, spend some time, maybe have AI build something for you and put it on your resume that you've done it. So at the moment it is beneficial. So you can't ignore the obvious and the right now that recruiters are looking for certain skill sets. So never sell yourself short there. IT is full of buzzwords that come and go.
yeah.
Like I can't, and we all hear, there's always been phases or trends. Like there's something that, like, if you put it on your resume, like in the cybersecurity has been big. Zero trust, throw that on a resume. 3 years ago, people would hire you in a spot, right? 15, 20 years ago, oh, voice over IP, voice over IP, oh,
Yes. Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
I could give you a million different ones, right? So, uh, be aware of what is important in the industry at the moment, and that's not a new hire thing. That's not a college thing. That's your whole career, and try to skill yourself up to a certain degree in that, and then utilize it. Put it on. Don't lie, but like if you try to do something, take a course, take a whatever, put it on the resume that you did it, just to stay current,
Yep,
right?
yep, absolutely. I think one of the bigger things about AI is, I mean, absolutely do use it and see how far you can take it. I think one of the things that you realize is as you understand more and more and more about a particular field, and you start asking these LLMs about that particular field or this particular topic, you'll start to see where the cracks show. You'll start to see the seams of its knowledge or its synthesis of that statistical database that it's pulling from, and that is where we belong. That's where we still have to be to say, that's not quite right. Maybe ask it again, or ask a different one, or bring in your own actual knowledge to kind of fill that gap and take it to the finish line at that point, right? But you don't ever really understand that. You don't ever really see that until you actually dive in and start using it. So don't be afraid of the LLM or anything like that. But I promise you will eventually see the seam where it starts to come apart just a little bit.
For sure. And last thing, like bigger company like Dell, AI probably has more opportunity to drive efficiencies at a big company like Dell than maybe the smaller shops, right? Just because there's so much process and there's bureaucracy, and to find an answer, you got to go find some PDF that's just hidden on SharePoint somewhere.
Yes.
AI can give you that answer probably quickly because it has access to all those things, right? So, but also if you're a new hire into a bigger company, and there's some type of AI capabilities like that, then that's your chance to, it might take you 5 years to build tribal knowledge and personal skills to learn all these things. But if they have an AI model internally, use the heck out of it. You can learn, the inner workings of a large company quite quickly now, because they're starting to integrate those models just as sort of like just an internal tribal knowledge kind of database. I know
Yes.
we have, and it's been super beneficial. Because we have all these people, our sales, every company sales force it rotates quite a bit, but it's like we have all these new people coming into Dell, and it's like this huge behemoth, this monster. But we have capabilities now where that person can kind of get trained up and understand how the company works significantly faster than they ever could before.
Absolutely. This is at the beginning of my career, at least of my teaching career. That was one of the things that was the hardest to do, which is to you'd have to know who to reach out to ask the question, to get the answer of this very specific thing, and you would have to. I mean, especially as a new hire, you don't know a lot, and so you have to ask a lot of questions. And it was always, I mean, it wasn't bad because you got to talk to everybody, but it was kind of frustrating to have to say, "Hey, do you know the answer to this?" And they're like, "No, but you could probably ask whoever." And then you would ask them, and they're like, "No," and then you should ask this person, and so you'd finally get your answer. But I think that is actually one of the good benefits of having one of these AIs that is just focused on the internal workings of your business. So you can quickly ask that question. You can be fairly confident that that's the answer. And then when you hit a dead end, I guess you can always loop in a person at that point. But that is a very beneficial part of dealing with that kind of thing. So toward the end of I'd say not the end of your career, toward the current
I
position
wish it
of
was.
your
I wish it was. I'd love to
almost.
retire soon.
Yeah, I think we both got a few more years. But so now that you're in the current iteration of your career, what is that like? What do you do on a day-to-day nowadays?
Yeah, it's shifted a little bit. So between 2022 and about a year and a half ago, my job, I probably need to update LinkedIn. It was squarely focused on cybersecurity product management, and in particular, Dell has a lot of cybersecurity consulting and managed services. So my role was to work with our various different partners, integrate a lot of their APIs into our delivery SOC delivery platform to drive automations and goodness to our delivery teams. But then also, we had some customer-facing portals that did dashboarding, reporting, and I not only worked on making sure that all came, surface to the customer in a nice user-friendly way. I was sort of the product manager for what our customer experience was meant to be in our service. So did competitive analysis of other vendors, also did some pricing, costing analysis. So it's probably where I've ventured out of the tech world to actually starting to use some of those core classes I learned, years ago in college, learning about what, our revenue, our margin, our, all these types of things, right? Understanding the difference between our cost versus our pricing, things like that. So wore a lot of hats there within cybersecurity. But then about a year and a half ago, they started, or my executives wanted to kind of have me branch into other kind of problem of the quarter kind of things. The way I describe it, it's just sort of like I was been around a while. I had done a lot of different types of roles, so I came with perspective from a lot of different angles. So they said, okay, hey, whenever there's something new or odd, we might lean on Andrew to kind of get it through the early phases, understand the problem statement. If we need to gather requirements to build some new capability for it, that was my role. So over the last year and a half, I've been involved with a few of our other products. Some of them are around our AI servers, which if I don't know if y'all know the details of what we would call an AI server. Let's just say it's like a power edge, but very very complicated, much more difficult to service and repair. So I've worked around operationalizing that. And then also some of our new cluster solution platforms. There's something you could read about online called Dell Automation Platform. I worked on certain requirements to make that a success. And then here recently at Dell Technologies World, we announced a kind of a new product suite called Exascale, which is on our storage side. Long story short, it's a flexible way for a customer to say, if I want object-based storage now, but then in 6 months I want file-based storage, customers can pivot back and forth from those just by changing the software they've deployed instead of needing to redeploy new hardware. So we're sort of shifting towards like every like storage devices not necessarily being their own unique piece of hardware. It's sort of like everything's a power edge, right? We're sort of standardizing on the hardware becoming the power edge hardware becoming the base of our operations. So I could geek out on that a bit, but the gist is that changes a lot of how we have to service them. So my role is to work across teams and collaborate to make sure that we know how to service those the right way. So long-winded answer, but like at the moment, I sort of wear like a technical strategist type of hat, which I enjoy. New problems all the time, but it's sort of a hybrid between product and program and just
Right.
regular old support, kind of thing.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I heard another echo of be well-rounded to be able to, to climb to these heights. And it sounded like having some background in finance and maybe some economics or something like that would really kind of help you make sense of the kind of day-to-day in a role like this.
Yeah, and definitely there's some soft skills there too. I mean, a lot of what I do now is I have to present to senior executives. And, if I could give you the one tip for like if you have to ever present to someone who's very much your senior at a company, like brevity, you know, or lead with the punchline. There's certain people that feel like I can't present to someone without giving them all the background and giving them all this knowledge. That
Right.
is, no, it's the opposite. You need to lead with the punchline. It's like, hey, I'm here to tell you about we're going to have a budget shortfall of this because this product is harder to support. Just
Right.
here's why it's harder to support, or just wait for them. So like that's one thing I would say. Just and that goes in a lot of areas. Like people who rise to senior leadership positions at companies, at universities, wherever, their day is divided into a lot of tiny slices of their brain, right? Like they're context switching all day. So the skill I would say is super important if you're ever having to present and upwards like that is just being very concise, leading with the punchline. If they ask for details, then you give it to them. That's probably like the single easiest tip I could tell, because that's just they're asked to do a lot with their brains, so they don't necessarily need they may be some of them are more patient than others, but most of them I've found will cut you off pretty quick if you're
E-
just going off and on and on and on. Like, I don't need to know this.
Exactly.
Tell me what I know. What do you need me for? you know. So, anyways,
Well, speaking of time slices, let's do a slight pivot. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to bring up to you, and I think the one that does tend to hit our students pretty hard is a lot of times students will enroll at TSTC as once they're ready for a career pivot, once they're ready to change what they've been doing, whatever that may be, and so they've got a few extra miles on them than your straight out of college 22-year old. What would you say to someone that's got maybe 10 or 20 years on someone fresh out of school? Um, what would um, I guess when you're competing, I guess essentially, right? When you got a 45-year-old and a 25-year-old competing, what could the 45-year-old do to make themselves look a little more attractive?
I mean, they obviously have done other things in their career. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Don't short sell yourself. If sometimes, and this is here's an example of where AI is actually quite good. Um, and I need to do this too because I said my LinkedIn is stale. uh, you know, giving a slightly sexier account of events than what you might. If you say, "Hey, what have you done in your career?" "Oh, well, I managed a car dealership or something," or "Oh, I was a sales." Well, it'd be like demonstrated proven leadership over a team of what I'm saying. Like, there's ways you can articulate the things you have done in your career, no matter what it was you did, uh, to showcase to leaders because they look for certain phrasing, right? Like, because I care about someone. Oh, have you led a team or at least been a team lead in some capacity? Have you been in charge of certain amount of money's worth of budget or equipment or something like that? Have you, those things people always undersell their accomplishments. So, one, do that. Uh, Two, try to keep an open mind of like where you might learn something from. Like there's been people come in that we've hired that are 15 years younger than me, but in a certain area they have much greater expertise, right? So sometimes you'll, you know, it, I'm 40, right? So I'm sort of in the middle, right? But sometimes I've underestimated like some new 20 something coming in, right? So that's the other angle of it too. You're bringing a lot of skills to the table that you may not have captured and written down, right? But then also, be willing to hear that, there's some people that can teach you a bit too.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think especially if you've got a few miles on you, I think the fact that you've got a longer career, kind of trailing you is going to help you a lot more than I think it might hurt you. Um, so another would be, I don't know, you you seem like you've had a very good career path, but if there was something that you could go back and talk to your 17, 18-year-old self and tell them with the knowledge that you've got today, what would you say to younger you about your career path? Was it the right choice, or what kind of advice would you give?
I have no regrets, and I'm one of those people that says minor
I
butterfly
could
effect,
guess.
right?
Yeah.
But like I've also joked with my wife. It's like, you know what? Knowing what I know now, I wish I'd have just become a damn doctor. Because I used to like, oh, I don't want to stay in school. I don't want to be in school that long. It's like, well, guess what? I chose tech, and I'm having to learn all the time anyway. Like,
Forever, yeah.
it's not a college, but I'm always doing continuing education. So and if we joked earlier about you said like mechanic, it's like okay, an ER doctor. Do you think an take the things they had to learn in school, throw them out the window? Do you think the ER doctor's actual methodology and skill set is that different than a IT person's? No. When did this start happening? Okay. What was the first sign? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Has it done it before? Is there a history? I mean, there's okay, let's go pull some logs. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean run some tests. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
the same
exactly. Give some
job.
blood.
So like I've joked with my wife, like, if I'd have known all this, I'd have just been like a dentist or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
or a doctor. So, but no, no regrets. To try to give you like a real non-joke answer, it would be uh, I've in my career had to bend more towards the business side of things. So I wish that when I was younger, there was like today, YouTube and AI, there's a wealth of knowledge. If you just need something explained simply to you that you don't understand, you could probably go find it pretty quickly. Like if you
Yeah.
need to figure out like margin targets or cost profiles, gross margin, total, that kind of stuff, you could probably find if you're willing to just search for it and spend some time watching the content. You can learn that in some ways faster than you could if you went to try to get a business degree at U of whatever's close to you. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
I wish I'd leaned a little bit more earlier on the business side of things, especially as it relates to how I would have bought some stocks a little earlier in my life too.
Yeah.
But it's hard to undersell how important it is to have a solid understanding of like we're all doing this in IT so that somebody can make money. So I think it's important to understand, how our employers make their money.
Yeah. I like that. You've had a career, I mean, starting from school that has forced you to become very, very well-rounded, and your advice to yourself would be even more well-rounded. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Um, Let me see. There was one more in here. So when applying for IT tech job type things, how much experience should we have, or when will we know we're ready? This is another common problem or another common question that we get a lot. So when do you know? When is it time?
I mean, it's never too early. Some people struggle. I mean, everybody at all ages. My 9-year-old son, we've talked about this, struggle with the fear of failure, right? I mean,
Right.
and you just have to get past the fear of failure because like so don't, oh, they're going to call me out as a fraud. It's like, yeah, but it's not like they're going to post it on social media and say this guy's a fraud, never accept an interview from him or anything. But I mean, that, I'm kind of joking, right? Don't apply to stuff that's like completely foreign to you. But I think it's important to kind of practice the interview process too. Right. Practice, this the whole back and forth. Like, have a friend, have a colleague, have a teacher do an interview through you and kind of press you. Like, try because the things that an interviewer looks for is how they handle something. Obviously, don't lie. Like,
Right.
there is I mentioned talking to execs. I talk to execs all the time. They'll ask me something, and I said, I don't know that answer, but I can get you that answer, or I think this is probably the answer, but don't hold me to it. Let me get you that. So how you respond well to things that you don't know says a lot. You can say you don't know with confidence. That's a big part of it too, right? You want to come across confident but not arrogant. What they say, like a wise person knows what they don't know, kind of a thing.
Right.
So
Right.
um, I think that was the nature of your question, really. Like when, like as far as interviewing, or you were saying like when do you think good is good enough to go enter the working world?
Y-
To that, I say you can enter the working world whenever, as long as you demonstrate some core skill sets, because there's going to be someone that takes a liking to you or wants to. to take a risk or whatever, right?
Absolutely. I think the question kind of boils down to imposter syndrome, and I don't know. I mean, you can get
I
a
get it all the time. I get
exactly.
it
You
all the
can
time.
you can get rid of parts of it, but I mean, there's always kind of this point. Like if you're truly progressing through your career, you're just gonna have that forever because there's always going to be something that you don't know. I think the true thing that you need to focus on with imposter syndrome is that when you come up to that, when you find a situation where you're like, "Oh no, I'm out of my depth. This must mean I'm bad at this." It's not that. It's that you just need to focus on whatever that is and that continuing education. You gotta just keep learning
You
all the
you
time.
you kind of gotta. I'll do another sports analogy. You kind of gotta be your own agent to a certain degree. Like, your agent's sort of your hype man, right? Who's telling you, here's all the things my client has done and accomplished. You kind of got to do that too. So, a recommendation I would have to everyone, right? Throughout any given year, keep some type of file, Excel, whatever your format is, of the things you've done throughout the year that added value to your employer, right? I finished some project, I accomplished something, I did whatever. One, because at the end of the year, at least at a big company like Dell, we have to do a self evaluation, right? And that's what kind of feeds that, right? But two, keep an ongoing thing. And that in theory, like throughout 5 years span, like what are all the things I've done? Like I could tell, again, I'm so hypocritical. I need to update my LinkedIn, but like I've solved a $2 million problem last year for my company, right? I have a note of it. My bosses know about it, right? But if I wanted to go get a job somewhere else, I would probably want to put that in the resume of like, hey, I worked with this team to solve this business problem that cut this excess spend. So like always track every good thing you've done, either during your career or even in college, and try to sprinkle that into your resume, into your LinkedIn, because I've given you practical reasons for doing that, but there's a psychological element too. Like sometimes you need that little like pick me up of like because I'm feeling like an imposter. You're like, oh look, I've done things. I've
Yeah.
been useful. I've been impactful. And the imposter syndrome, it happens every time. You might get a pay bump, and you're feeling great. You're feeling appreciated. There a certain amount of time will go on. Maybe you have a couple weeks stretch where nothing happens, and you're like, I need to do something. I might get fired. I'm not contributing to the company, even though like just 6 weeks ago your bosses gave you a pay bump because they like, what I mean. So it happens to everybody. All I can tell you is try to keep a list of the different things you've accomplished because it helps for your resume. It also just helps for your mental sanity.
Yeah, it definitely does. Okay, so we've kept you for about an hour, but if you will allow me, I've got one last question to
Sure.
ask. All right. So this is another common one that slipped my mind today, but it's a good one. So when it comes to certifications, is it better to kind of try to get those through school or before you get your first job, or is it more a once they hire you, then we can get on the certification treadmill?
Yeah, I mean, certifications have been a big part of my career, tracing back to it. The short answer is it's never going to hurt you to go get another cert, right? There's a financial element of it too, right? I mean, yes, I mean, they cost money. They cost different amounts of money. I don't know what they, cost now, but like people will go sign up for thousands upon thousands of dollars of educational stuff, but they balk at like $150 cert test or 200, whatever it is now.
Right.
I mean, my certification history, I'd have to go. I actually pulled up my LinkedIn because I'm just trying to remember all this stuff. I don't remember mine. But my first cert was I got my CCNA as a when senior year of high school because I had the Cisco program there. So I started pretty early. I kept it up for at least 10 years or so, but handful of Microsoft certs, VMware certs, even some things that aren't super technical, like ITIL Foundation. That's an
Hmm.
operations framework certification. That's like the intro one. PMP, project management professional. That's a good one too. It's right in the title of managing projects, right? Scrum cert I have, and then a CompTIA certified technical trainer. So like I've had a lot of certs over the years. They're very beneficial, especially in this day and age where a lot of resumes go through sort of this automation process where it just looks for certain things. So any type of known acronym in the industry you can put on there is valuable. But I genuinely, found myself I learn a lot as I go through the studying process. I know some people go and they take the tests. I mean, do whatever you want to do, but don't sell yourself short by like just not actually learning the material. So I'm a big supporter of certs. Uh, get them early. It doesn't hurt you to get a cert. It's not the end all be all. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but it's never going to hurt you to put something else on your resume and put yourself through some new skill that you've learned. And I've not kept up with it. I know like Microsoft now, I think they even have like a set of, they call them skills now. There's stuff you can do, like little
Hmm.
mini coursework. It's maybe not quite a full blown cert that you have to sit in an exam for. Any of those things are great because it's just, if not, if forget the like, yes, it teaches you something and it's a skill, but like it shows an employer that this person is interested in going out and bettering themselves
Right.
and putting something else on the resume. So yeah, I definitely encourage doing it. Having that kind of growth mindset is always useful. I mean, I think we could all say, but like I go down rat holes all the time on Wikipedia, on Reddit, on YouTube of just learning
Oh,
some
yes.
random thing, right? Like I could tell you about the Greek mythology. I mean, just random dumb, but like I enjoy that, right? All you all you got to do is maybe hotwire your brain a little bit to take that curiosity and apply it towards maybe a cert or a new technical concept, right? So
Yep.
even if you can't get yourself up for going and taking a cert or doing something, try to just hotwire your brain a little bit to make it like it is one of your hobbies or like it is something that interests you, because that's sort of how I used to do it when I was taking a lot more certs in the early part of my career, is to sort of like make it a hobby.
Definitely. I think that's one of the things that it's a lot easier to do when you're in school or when you're kind of steeped in the culture of tech to kind of say, "Oh, that is kind of interesting," and then you do that one search, and that one search turns into 100 searches, and about 50 videos. But yeah, I do find myself doing that all the even today, uh,
Mhm.
doing that kind of thing where you just kind of fall down a little rabbit hole and you learn something and you never know when you're going to apply it. But then, 7 months later, you're like, but I know this. And,
Yeah.
a lot of times it does work out. Sometimes it doesn't, but I mean, it was 45 minutes well worth spent when I was watching that video anyway. So it works out.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Andrew, I'm so glad you were able to come and sit down with us, have a chat with us. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, anytime. I've always appreciated my relationship with TSTC over the years. It's a great school. Offers a lot to folks who want to take my path or who maybe folks who already have a degree in some field and want to do something different. So I always appreciated the mission TSTC has. So thank you all for having me on.
Of course, of course. Hopefully one of these days we'll do this again and see what's changed, maybe after a year or two, and see if you've risen even higher.
I don't know about well, I'll tell you this, everything slows down when you have, a couple kids, you coaching baseball, you're doing whatever. The passion doesn't go away, but the hours in the day seem to be harder to come by.
Absolutely.
All right. I appreciate it, y'all.
Thank you.